The LA Kings continue their winning ways while not at their best. We'll talk about and break down a win over the Sharks. Quinton Byfield had a big night. Well, let's get him going. Gabe Vilardi's career year continues, and Pheonix Copley just keeps on winning. Plus, did you see his special celebration? We'll talk about all that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. And we are at 1,108 subscribers, which means we've already hit our goal of 1,100 by the end of this month. We're not even halfway through the month, so thank you to all that have taken the time to subscribe this month and previously as well. So the streak continues. We have had at least 100 new subscribers to Locked On LA Kings on the YouTube channel since the season started. So that is awesome. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for almost 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast. It's a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 16 years. And of course, a passionate LA Kings fan for the past 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. They say that good teams find ways to win when they aren't at their best. Well, the Kings were definitely not at their best last night, but they still found a way to post a 4-3 win over the San Jose Sharks. We're going to give you a quick recap of the game and my thoughts on some of the performances by some of the players. But first, I want to talk about the lineup last night. It was affected a bit due to a non-COVID related illness to Kings forward Victor Arvidsson. So he was out of the lineup, and that meant that they had to obviously fill his slot on the second line. They did that with Jarrett Anderson-Dolan. He moved up from the fourth line, playing alongside Philip Deneau and Alex Iafallo. And that meant that Carl Grundstrom would draw into the lineup, playing on the fourth line with Rasmus Kupari and Brendan Lemieux. As I said on yesterday's show, I thought last night would have been a good spot to get Jonathan Quick back in net. But that didn't happen. Todd McCullough decided to keep Pheonix Copley in there. Doesn't want to, but what is it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Also, I thought this was a good spot to get Alex Edler a rest, the veteran defenseman, something that Todd McCullough has talked about, and to get Jordan Spence into the lineup and get some playing time, but that didn't happen either. So Todd McCullough obviously had other ideas in mind than me, and I don't coach the team. So there you go. Not sure when we're going to see Quick in net again. But LA does have back-to-back road games coming up next Saturday in Nashville, and then the following day on Sunday in Chicago. I would expect to see Quickie in net for one of those games, if not sooner. We're going to talk more about the Kings' upcoming schedule in a moment, but back to last night's game. The Kings looked great to start. They controlled the pace. They didn't let San Jose get any sustained time in the Kings' end. They had some solid scoring chances. Other than a couple of early shots on goal for San Jose, but Pheonix Copley pretty much, I would say the back third of the first period didn't have much work. It was all James Reimer in net for the Sharks. He did have a very busy first period as the Kings outshot San Jose 22-8 in that opening period. And Reimer, credit him that it wasn't worse than 1-0 after one. The Kings, though, do get the lead. The lone goal coming from Adrian Kempe, his team leading 18th of the season. A nice feed from Quinton Byfield, who did finally get that primary assist on a goal that we kind of talked about earlier in the week. Unfortunately for LA, they did hurt themselves and let San Jose get back in the game in the second period, with Pheonix Copley making a rare blunder in net, his biggest mistake or faux pas so far as a Kings netminder. Pretty routine shot on goal. The puck would pop out of his glove, and he very casually tried to swipe the puck away from the front of the net, and he didn't really get much of his stick on the puck, just a little tiny bit of it. He kind of partially fanned on it, and San Jose's Nick Bonino jumped on the puck, put a backhand through Copley's legs easily, and tied up the game at 1-1. That was an embarrassing moment, frankly, for Pheonix Copley. As I said, he was pretty casual with how he played that, and it came back to bite him. It seemed to also give San Jose a little mojo and confidence for the rest of the game, as it was a much more competitive game after that point than it was in the first period. Still, LA would reclaim the lead on Quinton Byfield's first goal of the season. Defenseman Mikey Anderson would put a wrist shot towards the net from the point, and Byfield was in the high slot and deflected it in the net to make it 2-1 LA. The Kings would hold that lead going into the third, thanks to an amazing effort from defenseman Sean Walker, who honestly had the save of the night. A shot was put on net, and it was starting to trickle over the goal line when he literally put his skate in between the puck and the goal line, saving a goal. He was also able to help keep the puck there while the Sharks were, feeding frenzy, as you would expect with a loose puck in the net or in the crease. They were trying to crash the net, get in there, but he kept his skate in front of that puck somehow, wasn't pushed into the net, and that gave Pheonix Copley enough time to cover it up and save a goal. Phenomenal play by Sean Walker in that one. In the third period, both teams had some grade A chances, none better than the Kings 2-on-0 with Alex Iafallo and Phillip Deneau, but Iafallo took the puck to the net, and James Reimer ended up making the save. The Sharks would tie up the game on the power play. However, that was after a Sean Walker hooking penalty, but the Kings would get the lead back shortly thereafter on a deflection by Gabe Vilardi off a Sean Dursey point shot. That made it 3-2. Similar to the Byfield goal for Vilardi. That's Gabe's 17th of the season, by the way, second on the team. And then Drew Doughty would score what would end up being the game winner less than a minute after that. The Kings found themselves on a 2-on-1. Phillip Deneau with the puck. He saw Drew Doughty was hustling on the play, trailing the play, gave the pass back to him. Drew had time and space to pick a corner, and that's absolutely what he did to get his third goal of the season on a beautiful wrist shot. Great vision by Deneau, and great to see, kind of like in basketball, you reward your big man for running the floor. At least they used to have big men in basketball. They kind of don't anymore. But anyway, that was nice to see, rewarding your defenseman for jumping up in the play. And that's exactly what Phillip Deneau did with Drew Doughty. Again, that would be the game-winning goal, as the Sharks did add a goal late with about 3 minutes to go. They did pull their goalie for the extra attacker, but the Kings would not let them get any closer. And LA skates off with the 4-3 victory to improve to 3-0 against the Sharks this season. And unless there's a flat-out miracle and the Sharks somehow make the playoffs, the Kings will not play the Sharks again this season. That's it. They've played them 3 times. They won all 3, and they won't play them again. I don't get the scheduling, frankly, in the NHL this year. That shouldn't happen. You should always play at your division opponents at least once in the second half of the season, but that is not the case. We will not see the San Jose Sharks again this season. The Kings, again, sweeping the season series from San Jose, taking all 3 games. Now, again, the Kings did not play their best game of the season, but got the job done to improve to 25-14-6 for 56 points. The Kings, as it stands right now, are tied in points with the Vegas Golden Knights for first place in the Pacific Division. However, Vegas does have 3 games in hand on the Kings, so they do have a higher point percentage at this point. But still, the Kings obviously making a run at the division lead. Kings have won 10 of their last 13. Since that Boston win, the Kings have posted a 10-2-1 record. Pheonix Copley allowed 3 goals on 30 shots. And other than that one misplay on the Sharks' first goal, he had a pretty solid game. He's now 12-2 as an LA King. Somewhat surprising that the Kings' special teams didn't play much of a factor in the win, considering how great they were in the previous game against the Oilers. But the Kings were 0-2 with the man advantage against the Sharks, and they did allow 1 San Jose power play goal on 2 chances. Up next, the Kings will play host to the New Jersey Devils on Saturday. But we got to talk a lot more about this win by the LA Kings. Again, not their best effort, but good teams find ways to win when they're not at their best. And we have to talk about Quinton Byfield, Gabe Vilardi, and Pheonix Copley. But first, I need to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every pro and college league out there, from football to basketball. We've got esports as well, if you're into that. They've got that all covered at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. BetOnline is always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to betonline.net today or use your mobile device to learn more. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so we'll start off real quick about the lineup changes because of Victor Arvidsson being ill. Both Jarrett Anderson-Dolan and Carl Grundstrom were not really factors in this game at all. Not that you would expect them to be, but when you have lineup changes, you want to know how it worked out. They played fine. There were a couple of times where I thought Jad. No, we're not calling him Jad. We're calling him JAD. Sorry, I got that confused. I'm calling him JAD. So others are calling him Jad. But anyway, Jared Anderson Dolan. There were a couple of times he did a nice job using his speed on the forecheck. But for the most part, not really a factor in this one. He played 16 minutes and 40 seconds, no points. He was credited with 2 shots and had 1 block shot. As for Carl Grundstrom, he ended up playing 8 minutes and 53 seconds, no points, and was credited with 2 hits. Got to talk about Quinton Byfield. He has been somewhat of a polarizing player for the Kings, at least amongst some. We talked about it a bit on a previous show this week. And I don't know if his performance last night is going to quiet his major critics. I'm sure they're going to say, oh, yeah, well, do it again. That was okay, but you got to be consistent and understand that. But I think last night's game was Quinton Byfield's best game as an LA King. Now, granted, he hasn't played a ton of games, but it was his first NHL career multi-point game, had a primary assist on Kempe's goal, and made a nice play on that play where he went around the back of the net, used his size and his reach to make a nice feed out in front to Kempe. And he also had that nice deflection for his first goal of the season with the Kings. And I have said I'm not sure about Byfield playing on the wing. I think I'd rather see him playing at center, but regardless of where he plays, it was great to see him have a big game and directly contribute to a Kings win. He was named the number 1 star of the game for what that's worth. And hopefully this will give him some confidence to spark him, to get him going. It certainly couldn't hurt. You've got to be a consistent player if you're going to be a solid contributor at the NHL level. It's not just, contributing once a week or once every other week. You need to, it needs to be pretty much on a night in, night out basis to be a really player of significance, right? And he's not there yet. We've talked about it. He's still very young, still has not played a full 82 games at the NHL level yet. And so people like me are willing to give him more time. But I thought it was like I said, I think it's his best game as an LA King. That's certainly encouraging. We'll see if he can keep it going, not just be a sometimes contributor, but a solid contributor. And I thought it was a decent first step for Quinton Byfield in that game against the Sharks. Great game for Quinton Byfield and very positive to see. Hopefully he can keep that going forward. It remains to be seen if Quinton Byfield is going to be one of those players that you didn't count on at the beginning of the year, but end up having a big year. But that player has been Gabe Vilardi. He continues his fantastic season. We talked about it at the beginning of the year. Going into this season, Adrian Kempe, Philip Deneau, Trevor Moore, Kevin Fiala, all had career numbers last year. Could they at least get close to those numbers again? And so far, the answer to that question has been, thankfully, yes. But we were wondering who would be, if there would be, a player that, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but did something unexpected. Well, Pheonix Copley certainly is on that list, but Gabe Vilardi is there as well. 17 goals on the season and 30 points so far. His previous career high for goals in a season was 10. So we're just past the halfway point of this year, and he's almost already doubled that. Excuse me. So this is obviously a huge, huge career year for Gabe Vilardi. We think he's going to get around 30 goals, and that's absolutely fantastic. That production coming from somewhat of an unexpected source is been a big reason why the Kings have done what they've done so far. We've talked about it with Jim Fox. The balance of this team is something that is a huge asset for them going forward. They're not just relying on one line or two lines. They're relying on really a top 9, to be honest with you. And the fourth line isn't really contributing much, but the top 3 lines are all having a hand in what the Kings are doing. And that's what championship teams do. You've got to have at least 3 lines that contribute if you're going to be a championship team. Look at Tampa Bay, look at Colorado. Those teams have had that, and that's what the Kings will need to have going forward. Of course, that was kind of getting overshadowed earlier in the year by the subpar goaltending and the poor defense, but that has been straightened out of late, and we have seen the results. But Gabe Vilardi, great year for him so far, and just keeps getting better. We've talked about it before. Jim Fox mentioned it on this show, and I agree with him. It's great to see Gabe Vilardi enjoying, playing the game of hockey right now. I don't know that he enjoyed it the last few years, and certainly there were certain factors that led into that, but he's having a great, great season. been a major contributor to the Kings this year. And oh, by the way, he's putting himself in a position for a major raise next season. I usually don't like to look ahead too much into, the next season while we're in a season. Usually save that for the offseason, but it is worth pointing out Gabe Vilardi is again going to be a restricted free agent after this year. He does have arbitration rights, so he is going to get paid more money next year. But he is under team control as a restricted free agent, so that's good. But we'll see how it goes. That it's going to be there's going to be some money freed up next season. The Kings currently have 4 unrestricted free agents on their roster, and I think 3 of them are going to be gone. Brendan Lemieux, I think, will be gone. Alex Edler, I think, will be gone. And I think Jonathan Quick will probably be gone as well, unless he does something to give the team a huge hometown discount, at least how it stands at the moment. But Gabe Vilardi, with his performance, will have well earned a pay raise next season, and we'll probably get a decent size raise, if not next season, then in the near future with what he is doing. The other unrestricted free agent, by the way, is Pheonix Copley. Speaking of him, I mentioned that he had a pretty big goof last night in a misplay of the puck twice, basically, that led to the Shark first goal and kind of got him going a little bit. To his credit, you would never have known that he made a big, embarrassing, frankly, mistake. And I thought he handled it like a pro. I've never played in net. I don't think I ever want to, but that position requires you to be obviously very mentally tough. And it's about the next save. It's about the next shot. And once you let in a goal, you got to turn the page and forget it, put it behind you and move forward. And I thought Pheonix absolutely did that. You would never have known that he had an embarrassing moment that led to a goal based on the way he played after that. Strong game, solid play in net after that point. And this is a guy, I think it probably should be pointed out, that is certainly not a rookie in any sense. He clearly hasn't played a full season at the NHL level yet. I think he's got to be approaching that, somewhere around 80 games in his career, but he still hasn't done that. But he has played over 200 games professionally. He, has been a guy who has been in the minor leagues, specifically in the AHL, for a number of years. So this is not a young goalie, all right, who's come onto the scene. Yeah, he's young in the sense of NHL experience, but again, I think he's turning 31 here in the near future. So he is a veteran guy who is now, getting major NHL experience. But again, I thought the way he handled that embarrassing moment on national TV, by the way, says a lot about him and a lot about his mental makeup. And, you talk about pressure, and obviously all goaltenders have pressure on them. It's the most important position on a hockey team. There's no question about that. And the way Pheonix Copley has handled it, we talked about just how he handled that moment, but I think that kind of gives you maybe a window into how he has handled this whole situation. A guy who there was no way anyone could have predicted he'd be in the position that he is in. And there's something to be said, and we talked about it on last week's, we had some emails on last week's show about maybe he's just enjoying the moment. There's no pressure on him, and that's what helped him to play the way he has. But you also have to consider the fact that I've said it before, this is likely his best opportunity to be a number one goalie for a contending team. Now that's not etched in stone. We don't know what the future holds, but he's got to believe this is his big opportunity, and not only a big opportunity to be a legitimate goaltender in the NHL, but frankly, from the business side of it, like I said, he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. This is his chance to cash in financially and help secure his lifestyle going forward. And we don't think much about that kind of thing, but it's important. Obviously, if he can get a multi-year deal with the Kings or somebody else for several $1,000,000 going forward, that's a life change thing, right? And so there's pressure there to keep performing, to ensure that after this year he can get a substantial payday going forward to secure the rest of his life. So there is pressure there. He's handling it well, and I get that no one expected this from him at this point, but there is pressure there. I think it's probably something, if you're an athlete, that you try to put into the back of your mind as best you can, but there is that reality of it as well. By the way, I know there are some people that didn't watch the game because it wasn't televised locally. I know cord cutters and all that kind of stuff. Some people don't have TNT, which is the network it was on. If you didn't see it, maybe you saw it on social media, but there was an awesome moment for Pheonix Copley, who I guess kind of let his hair down a little bit after the game. Uh, Will Ferrell was at the game. I'm guessing you know who he is, obviously, big Hollywood star and a Kings fan. And he was sitting on the glass down low, obviously, had some nice seats. He was showed on the scoreboard. They showed him on the TV broadcast a few times. After the game, Pheonix Copley skates over to Will Ferrell and gives him the high five with his glove hand up against the glass, and Will Ferrell gave him it right back. And that was awesome to see. And again, if you would have told Pheonix Copley, hey, this season you're going to be the Kings' number one goalie, you're going to have an amazing run, and you're going to, high five with Will Ferrell, I'm guessing he would have probably laughed and thought, yeah, what are you smoking? But it's happening, only in Hollywood, right? But that was a cool moment to see Pheonix Copley having some fun after the game and celebrating with Kings fan Will Ferrell. I did mention that the game was televised nationally on TNT, and just a quick gripe, and maybe I'm just being a homer here, but I was really disappointed to see that before the game, they had a sit down interview with Sharks defenseman Erik Karlsson. And I get it. He is probably going to win the Norris Trophy this year. Maybe he even wins the Masterton as like comeback player of the year because he's had such an amazing year. And I don't know, maybe he is a huge piece moved at the trade deadline for a Sharks team that's looking to rebuild. But the Kings are clearly the better team going into this matchup. A great story in Pheonix Copley that they could have certainly done some sort of sit down feature on. Maybe Kevin Fiala, who's an all-star, but they didn't do that. They talked to a Sharks player on a team that is not really significant right now. So I thought that was kind of a bummer. Maybe I'm just being a homer there, but I was a little bit surprised to see them feature a Sharks player before the game. Although all due credit, Erik Karlsson is having a phenomenal year. We are going to look ahead for the LA Kings. We're going to look ahead to tomorrow's show. We're going to look ahead to the Kings' upcoming schedule and look ahead to some possible lineup changes for the Kings. That's coming up in a moment. First, I need to remind you that today's episode is also brought to you by Athletic Greens. With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to start your day off right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, refocus, aging. AG1 contains 1 gram of sugar, costs you less than $3 a day. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water. It's all you need. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make things easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. That's athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So looking at the schedule for the Kings going forward, they've got the New Jersey Devils coming up this Saturday. And then they've got 4 days off before hosting Dallas next Thursday. And then an extended road trip that includes the NHL All-Star break mixed in. After that Dallas game on January 19th, the Kings won't be home again until February the 11th. That's almost a full month away from home. So if you're looking to get a Kings game in before mid-February, you need to go see the Devils game this Saturday or the Stars game next Thursday. The Kings are only going to have 3 home games in the entire month of February. One of them will be the Justin Brown jersey retirement night, so that'll be a big one. But the Kings are going to be away from home for a while. So again, if you want to get out and see the boys skate before they head out on this big road trip, then you might want to get out there soon. Also, going to be curious to see how the Kings handle the return of Trevor Moore and Arthur Kaliev. I do think that the Kings have missed Kaliev on the second power play unit. Moore, obviously, a very important player all around as well. Both of them have been out for a while with what we were told were minor injuries. So I would expect to see them coming back relatively soon. I think the Kings, the way they've played lately, they've got the luxury of giving them extra time to heal up with whatever these injuries are. But I would expect to see them both back probably soon before the Kings head out on this extended road trip. And it'll be interesting to see what the Kings decide to do with the lineup. I would expect to see Jarrett Anderson-Dolan sent to Ontario, maybe Rasmus Kupari as well, since he's still waiver eligible. I don't see Quinton Byfield going back to the AHL, but that remains to be seen. But there are some decisions to be made for the LA Kings as far as their roster as well. And by the way they're playing, getting two key players back healthy, I mean, good sign for the Kings that the depth they have and the health they've had so far this season has been a big part of their success. Coming up on tomorrow's show, it is a Feedback Friday. If you have anything you want to chime in on as far as what we've talked about this week or anything else, you can leave a comment on the YouTube episodes, or you can send me an email. The email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE, lockedoneddie@gmail.com. Looking forward to reading your comments and your questions on tomorrow's show. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter, that'd be cool. We are at Locked On LA Kings. We're also on Instagram at Locked On LA Kings as well. Thank you for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL Prospects, your daily prospect, or should say your daily podcast covering the next generation of hockey superstars leading up to the NHL draft. Plus, they have NHL draft rankings and top prospects comparisons for every team. That is Locked On NHL Prospects, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings. Have a great day, a great night. And as always, go Kings, go.